I never thought I'd be writing this, but here we are. My name's Ethan, and I'm a 33-year-old husband who thought he had it all together. I've been married to Megan for 6 years. 6 years of what I thought was a great marriage. We were the couple everyone said they envied, going on vacations, laughing at dumb TV shows, and keeping our bedroom life solid. Or so I thought. But recently, things have felt off. Megan started getting weirdly distant. At first, I chalked it up to stress. She'd just gotten a promotion at work, which meant longer hours and more responsibility. She said she was too tired for sex, which I get, but it became a pattern. The late nights at the office started happening more frequently, and when she was home, she was glued to her phone, texting her friends nonstop. I didn't think much of it at first. I trusted her completely. Then, one day, I noticed something. She was smiling at her phone, and when I asked her what was so funny, she locked the screen and said it was just a meme from a coworker. Maybe it was. But then, why hide it? Why the sudden need for secrecy? I wasn't the paranoid type, but when these things start piling up, it messes with your head. You start noticing every little thing. And now, I'm sitting here, trying to make sense of it all. It all came crashing down about 2 weeks ago. Megan had another one of her late nights at work, but something wasn't sitting right with me this time. Call it a gut feeling, intuition, whatever, something in the air felt off. So, I did something I never thought I'd do. I checked her location on our shared family tracking app. She wasn't at the office. She was at a restaurant across town. My heart sank. I wanted to believe there was some innocent explanation, but my mind was already racing with worst-case scenarios. I tried to rationalize it. Maybe it was a work dinner, maybe she didn't mention it because she knew I wouldn't care, maybe I was just being paranoid. But when she came home later that night, something was different. She didn't even try to act like she had been working late. Instead, she came in with a weird mix of guilt and indifference, barely acknowledging me before heading straight for the shower. And her phone? Yeah, it was glued to her hand as usual, like it had secrets to keep. I had this tight knot in my stomach that wouldn't go away. Something was up. So, the next day, when she was out running errands, I decided to check her phone. Yeah, I know, snooping is a low move. But I was desperate for answers. And I found them. There it was, text from a guy named Ryan. The conversation was intimate. Not full-blown sexting, but close enough. They'd been planning meetups, sending flirty messages, and talking about how they couldn't wait to see each other again. My blood ran cold. I couldn't believe it. Megan, the woman I'd spent 6 years of my life with, was seeing someone else behind my back. I felt sick. My hands were shaking, my vision blurred. It felt like someone had punched me in the gut, and I couldn't catch my breath. I sat there staring at the screen, trying to make sense of it. Trying to convince myself that maybe I was overreacting, that maybe it wasn't as bad as it seemed. But deep down, I knew the truth. Megan was cheating on me. I didn't know how to approach Megan about this. Every time I looked at her, the betrayal felt like a weight pressing down on my chest. But I couldn't keep it in anymore. That night, when she got home from work, I decided it was time to confront her. I didn't plan anything, just let the anger and hurt drive me. She was in the kitchen, scrolling through her phone like nothing was wrong. I couldn't stand the sight of it anymore. Megan, we need to talk. She glanced up at me, looking mildly annoyed. What now, Ethan? I've had a long day. I couldn't take her attitude, not after everything I had seen. A long day, huh? Did that long day include meeting up with Ryan? I didn't even try to ease into it. Her face froze for a second, just a second. Then she put on this practiced, fake confusion. What are you talking about? Ryan? Who the hell is Ryan? I pulled out her phone from my pocket. Yeah, I had taken screenshots of their conversation. I wasn't leaving any room for her to manipulate the situation. I held it out to her, letting her read through the messages I had seen earlier. Her eyes widened, but not in the way I expected. Instead of breaking down or trying to explain, she got defensive. Are you seriously going through my phone now? That's such a violation of my privacy, Ethan. You don't trust me, do you? I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Trust you? Megan, you've been lying to me for months. I found your messages with him. You're cheating on me, and you think I'm the one who's out of line? She crossed her arms, rolling her eyes like I was the one overreacting. Oh, please. It's not what you think. Ryan's just a friend. We flirt sometimes, but it's harmless. God, why do you always make everything such a big deal? Her words hit me like a slap. Harmless? Flirting? She was downplaying it like I was some idiot who didn't understand what was going on. Harmless? You've been lying to me for weeks, maybe months. Meeting up with him behind my back. How is that harmless? My voice was shaking now, the hurt bubbling over into pure rage. She shrugged like it wasn't worth the drama. It's not like I slept with him, Ethan. We just hang out. You're blowing this way out of proportion. Maybe if you weren't so insecure, we wouldn't be having this conversation. That was it. I'd always heard about gaslighting, but I never thought I'd experience it firsthand. She was twisting everything around, making me feel like the crazy one for calling her out. I couldn't believe this was happening. My wife, the woman I thought I knew better than anyone, was standing in front of me, lying through her teeth without an ounce of remorse. It was like I didn't even recognize her anymore. After that confrontation, I didn't know what to do. Megan stormed off, slamming the bedroom door behind her, leaving me standing in the kitchen with a mess of emotions. I couldn't sleep that night. I laid on the couch, staring at the ceiling, replaying our fight over and over. Every word she said cut deeper than the last. The way she tried to downplay everything, the fact that she made me feel like the villain, it was like a mind game I never signed up for. I was pissed, no doubt about that, but beneath the anger, there was this overwhelming sense of sadness. How could she be so cold? So detached from the damage she was causing? I kept thinking about all the moments we'd shared, the vacations, the holidays, the quiet nights and watching movies. All of it felt like it had been poisoned. I couldn't separate the memories from the lies anymore. Every good thing we'd shared now felt like a lie, tainted by her betrayal. The next morning, Megan acted like nothing had happened. She came downstairs, made coffee, and didn't say a word about the night before. It was like she was pretending our argument was just some little spat, nothing serious. I tried to talk to her again, to get some real answers, but she shut me down fast. Ethan, can we not do this again? I already told you, it's not what you think. You're making this into some huge issue when it's really not. Let's just move on. Move on? Like that? Like everything I was feeling didn't matter? I couldn't hold back anymore. Megan, I can't just pretend this never happened. You've been lying to me, meeting up with some guy behind my back. Do you even care about what this is doing to me? Do you even care about us? She sipped her coffee and barely glanced at me. Of course I care. But honestly, Ethan, I'm tired. Tired of this conversation. You're overreacting. It's not like we're perfect. You haven't exactly been the most exciting husband lately. There it was. The knife twist. Suddenly it was my fault. I wasn't exciting enough. I wasn't enough for her. I felt like my heart was being ripped out of my chest. This was the woman I loved, the woman I built my life around, telling me that I wasn't enough. That everything I had done for our marriage didn't matter because I wasn't keeping her entertained. I could barely breathe. The mix of anger and grief was suffocating. I didn't know how to respond. She just stared at me like this whole thing was a minor inconvenience, like I was being dramatic for feeling hurt. That's when it really hit me, she didn't feel guilty. Not even a little. She didn't see what she did as wrong, because in her twisted logic, I had somehow caused it. The woman I loved was gone. In her place was someone I didn't recognize, someone who had no problem tearing me down to justify her own actions. And that realization broke me. After that conversation, I completely shut down. I didn't have the energy to argue anymore. Megan went on living her life as if nothing had changed, while I felt like my world had been flipped upside down. Every time she left the house for one of her work meetings or girl nights, I was drowning in suspicion. I couldn't shake the image of her with Ryan, laughing, flirting, maybe even more. She kept insisting that it was all harmless, but nothing about it felt harmless to me. I tried to throw myself into work, hang out with friends, anything to take my mind off the situation, but nothing helped. Everywhere I went, it was like I had this storm cloud over me. I couldn't stop thinking about how easily she brushed everything off, like our marriage was just a background detail in her life. I felt trapped, stuck in this relationship where I was the only one trying to make things work. One night, after yet another late work dinner, I completely lost it. Megan came home around midnight, her makeup still fresh, and the smell of wine clinging to her clothes. She was giggling when she walked through the door, clearly in a good mood. And something about that just broke me. "Did you have fun with Ryan tonight?" I asked, my voice cold and flat. She looked at me, rolling her eyes like I was a child throwing a tantrum. "Oh my God, Ethan! Can you just let it go? I already told you, there's nothing going on. You're being ridiculous." I stood up, my heart racing. "Nothing going on? Then why does it feel like I'm losing my wife to some other guy? Why do you act like our marriage doesn't even matter to you anymore?" She sighed, exasperated. "Ethan, you're being so dramatic. We're fine. You're the one making this a bigger deal than it is. Maybe if you stopped obsessing over Ryan, we could actually focus on us." "Us?" I couldn't hold back the sarcasm. "There hasn't been an us for months, Megan. You barely talk to me anymore. You spend more time texting him than you do with me. You lie, you sneak around. How am I supposed to just ignore that?" Her face hardened. "You know what, Ethan? Maybe if you'd stop being so insecure, I wouldn't have to hang out with other people to get some space. You're suffocating me." There it was again. It was my fault. I was the one ruining our marriage in her eyes. Not her lies, not her affair, just me being insecure. I felt like I was losing my mind. The more I tried to get her to understand how much pain I was in, the more she dismissed me, making me feel like I was overreacting. And the worst part? A part of me started to believe her. Maybe I was the problem. Maybe I wasn't enough. Maybe this was all happening because I wasn't the husband she needed. I went upstairs, slammed the bedroom door, and locked myself inside. I didn't want to see her. I didn't want to hear any more of her excuses or have her twist my emotions. I sat on the edge of the bed, feeling completely numb. What was left of our marriage? What was left of me? It was in that moment, sitting in the dark, that I realized something had to change. This wasn't just about Megan and Ryan anymore. This was about me, and how much longer I could keep holding on to a marriage that was breaking me. Something had to give. The next morning, I woke up with a clarity I hadn't felt in weeks. I realized I couldn't keep living like this. I deserved better than to be treated like an afterthought in my own marriage. I was tired of feeling like I had to tiptoe around Megan's feelings while she manipulated mine. The pain, the lies, the constant second-guessing, it was all too much. I needed to confront her again, but this time, it wouldn't be about accusations or anger. It was going to be about me, my feelings, my boundaries, and my future. I took a deep breath, steeling myself for what was to come. Megan came downstairs, her usual fake cheerfulness plastered on her face. "Good morning! Want to grab breakfast?" she asked, as if we hadn't just been through hell. "Actually, we need to talk," I said, my tone firm. She instantly switched from cheerful to annoyed. "What now? I thought we were done with this." "No, we're not. I've been doing a lot of thinking," I began, forcing myself to hold her gaze. "I've realized that this situation isn't healthy for me. Or for us." Her brow furrowed, clearly confused. "What do you mean?" I took a deep breath, trying to find the right words. "Megan, I've felt like I'm constantly walking on eggshells around you. You dismiss my feelings, downplay the reality of what's happening, and it hurts. It feels like you don't care about our marriage, and I can't keep fighting for something you're not willing to fight for." Her face twisted in indignation. "Are you seriously saying this is all my fault? You're acting like I've done something terrible when I haven't." I shook my head, trying to stay calm. "This isn't just about blame. I love you, but I can't be with someone who makes me feel this way. I can't be in a marriage where I feel unvalued and insecure. I need more than this constant back and forth of accusations and dismissals. Ethan, you're being so unreasonable. I'm just living my life, and you're acting like I owe you some kind of explanation. This is ridiculous." Her frustration fueled my determination. "You're right, you don't owe me anything. But I need to do what's best for me. And right now, that means I can't keep living like this. I'm not saying I want a divorce just yet, but I need space to figure things out. I need to be away from this toxic environment." She looked at me, her eyes wide with disbelief. "Space? You're seriously going to throw our marriage away because of some misunderstandings?" I stepped back, letting the weight of my words hang in the air. "This isn't just some misunderstanding, Megan. This is about trust, honesty, and respect, 3 things that have been missing from our relationship. If you can't see that, then I don't know how we can move forward together." Her expression shifted from disbelief to anger. "So what? You're just going to leave me? You think that's going to solve anything? I don't want to leave you, but I can't keep sacrificing my mental health for this relationship. I need time to think about what I really want." With that, I turned away, feeling a strange mix of relief and heartache. This was the hardest decision I'd ever had to make. As I walked toward the door, I couldn't help but feel that I was finally taking control of my life again. I didn't know what the future held, but at least I was no longer letting Megan dictate my emotions or my happiness. I had to choose myself for once. Leaving the house felt surreal. I packed a small bag and drove to my brother's place, where I could clear my head away from the chaos. The quietness of his apartment was a stark contrast to the whirlwind of emotions I had just left behind. I sat on his couch, staring at the wall, letting the weight of everything settle in. It felt like I had been holding my breath for too long, and now, finally, I could exhale. The first couple of days were the hardest. My mind was a mess, torn between anger, sadness, and an odd sense of freedom. I couldn't shake the memories of Megan and our life together. The happy times played on repeat, but now they felt tainted, overshadowed by her betrayal. I missed her laugh, her smile, the way we used to talk about everything. Yet, each time I thought about going back, I felt that familiar gut punch. I started focusing on myself. I hit the gym, reconnected with old friends, and dove back into hobbies I had neglected. Slowly, I began to reclaim pieces of myself that had been overshadowed by the turmoil of our relationship. I took long bike rides, allowing the wind to clear my head, reminding me what it felt like to be free. There were moments of doubt. What if I was making a mistake? What if Megan really did change? But deep down, I knew this was necessary. Megan called a few times, each time more frantic than the last. I let the calls go to voicemail, knowing that she'd only try to manipulate me back into her orbit. I could picture her, upset, angry, possibly desperate, trying to act like she was the victim in this situation. But I couldn't let that pull me back in. About a week later, I finally found the courage to reply to one of her texts. I kept it simple. "I need time. Let's talk when I'm ready." I hit send and immediately felt a rush of anxiety. Would she respect my space, or would she push harder? I knew I had to prepare for anything. Megan responded, surprisingly calm. "Fine. I can wait. Just know that I want to fix this." Her words felt like a double-edged sword. On one hand, there was a flicker of hope that maybe she understood the gravity of the situation. On the other, I felt a tightening in my chest, realizing that I had no idea what that meant. Did she really want to fix things, or was she just trying to get me back to where I was, where she wanted me? I spent the next few days weighing my options, thinking about whether I wanted to give her another chance. I couldn't deny the good times we had, but every time I thought about her dishonesty, the scales tipped toward walking away. I talked to friends and family, and they all echoed the same advice. Don't rush back in. Make sure you're ready. Finally, after a couple of weeks, I knew I had to talk to her. I couldn't avoid it forever. I wanted to be fair, to hear her out and see if she truly understood what she had done. So, I texted her to meet up at a coffee shop. I was ready to face whatever came next. Sitting in the coffee shop, I could feel the nerves building in my stomach. The familiar aroma of brewed coffee mingled with my anxious thoughts, and I fidgeted with my cup, trying to calm myself. When Megan walked in, she looked different, more subdued. Gone was the arrogance I had seen before. Instead, she wore a worried expression that made my heart ache a little. "Hey," she said softly as she approached, her voice almost tentative. "Hey," I replied, trying to keep my tone neutral. We found a small table in the corner, and for a moment neither of us knew what to say. It felt like we were two strangers meeting for the first time, rather than a married couple whose lives had been intertwined for years. I took a deep breath and started. "I'm glad you agreed to meet. I wanted to talk about everything." Megan nodded, her eyes searching mine. "I know I messed up, Ethan. I'm so sorry for everything. I didn't mean to hurt you. I got caught up in, I don't know, excitement? It was a stupid choice, and I can't believe I put us in this position." I held back the urge to jump in with accusations. I needed to hear her out, needed to know if she genuinely understood the depth of her betrayal. "You said you wanted to fix this. What does that look like for you?" She paused, visibly taking time to gather her thoughts. "I want to make amends. I've been doing a lot of thinking myself. I realized how selfish I was, how much I took you for granted. I can't change what I did, but I want to prove that I can be better. I want to work on our relationship, if you'll let me." The sincerity in her voice made me falter for a moment. Could she really change? Could we rebuild what was shattered? But then I remembered the lies, the gaslighting, and how easily she'd dismissed my feelings. I didn't want to get swept up in hope again without some real evidence of change. "I need time to process everything," I said carefully. "Trust isn't something that comes back overnight. You hurt me deeply, Megan. I need to see actions that show you're committed to making things right, not just words." She looked down, clearly upset, but I could see a flicker of determination in her eyes. "I understand. I'll do whatever it takes to show you I can change. I'll go to counseling, I'll be transparent with my phone and my time, whatever you need to feel safe again." I appreciated her willingness to take responsibility, but I also knew this wouldn't be easy. I want to see real effort over time, not just a few weeks of good behavior. And if I feel like you're not being genuine, I will walk away for good. I can't keep putting myself through this. She nodded, tears welling up in her eyes. "I'm willing to fight for us, Ethan. I promise I won't take you for granted again. I just hope you can find it in your heart to give me another chance." As I looked at her, I felt a complex mix of emotions. I wanted to believe her, but I also had to be realistic. It would take time to rebuild trust, and it would take work from both of us. "I'm willing to see how this goes," I said finally, my voice steady. "But I need to put myself first for a while. I want to see you work on yourself before we jump back into anything. I'm not sure we can just go back to the way things were." She took a deep breath, and I could see the relief wash over her. "I understand. I'll show you I can change. I promise." We ended the meeting on a cautious note, both knowing there was a long road ahead. As I walked out of the coffee shop, I felt a strange sense of hope mixed with uncertainty. The future was still unclear, but for the first time in a long time, I felt like I was on a path toward healing. Whether it led us back together or apart, I knew I was finally taking control of my life. This journey was going to be difficult, but it was mine, and that made all the difference. I had learned that self-respect and honesty were crucial in any relationship, and I was ready to fight for those values, whatever the outcome.